Don't reach failure in calisthenics. At first sight, if your goal is to build muscle, this advice will probably be the worst thing you could do. However, if you would like to get better at some specific exercises or skills, like the handstand push-up, while being in that specific weird phase when you can only do 3 reps, then there is some room to apply this. Calisthenics is a very broad term. Essentially, it is any exercise or method of exercising done with only your own body weight. Although some people will disagree on the only part. And if you have ever done calisthenics, you will know that many times going from one exercise to another seems to be a rough transition that shows a big contrast with what progressive overload would look like with weights. You can always use dumbbells that are 5 pounds apart from each other and work your way up with 5 pounds increments. And this essentially applies to any exercise at the gym. However, such small increments can be done in calisthenics in many exercises. You can do small increments of difficulty with easy exercises like incline push-ups. The more incline, the easier it is. The less incline, the harder it is. However, there is a point in many harder exercises where small increments can be done in that same way. An example of the rough transition in calisthenics will be transitioning from a pike push-up to a handstand push-up. Even if you could manage the difficulty by the proximity of your legs in a pike push-up, the transition between pike push-up to handstand push-up is still huge. It will be something like 45 pounds increments to your bench, for example, without doing any small increment in only one go. These rough transitions in a way compel you in many ways to not reach failure at all. Failure is great for muscle building, but if you have ever gone to failure, it is incredibly fatiguing and whatever strength you have decreases substantially. This matters a lot when you can only do 4 reps of an exercise that is highly difficult for you, but not when you can do 15 reps. If you reach failure with 15 or 20 reps of pike push-ups and then transition to a handstand push-up, it is very likely that your rep range will highly decrease from 15 to 20 reps to a measly 3 to 4 reps or less. You might not even be able to do it at all. Your capacity to do reps and sets on the handstand push-up is incredibly low compared to what you can do with the pike push-up. And let's say you reach failure very frequently on pike push-ups, and now attempt to frequently reach failure on your handstand push-up sets when your max set is 4 reps. What is going to happen is once you do your first set and reach failure at 4 reps, the next sets you won't be able to do the same 4 reps. You might do 3 to 2 reps on your second set, and the reps you are able to do each set are going to cumulatively decrease if you keep reaching failure while doing a highly difficult exercise that you are not used to. If you do 4 sets to failure, assuming that balance is not an issue, and you reach failure at all the sets, you might not even reach even 10 reps of handstand push-ups as a total. Not only that, but failure is taxing for your body and your recovery. Constantly reach failure and you will need more rest between every handstand push-up workout, which means that you are going to train less frequently, which in turn means a slower adaptation. It not only will affect how much you need to rest after your workout, but also as you do the workout itself. Reaching failure in heavy exercises always implies that you will need to have longer rests between sets if you want to hit the same reps you did before. This happened to me because if you're a beginner in calisthenics, you will probably have started with high rep calisthenics training with a hypertrophy focus, something like barbarian style training or bronze calisthenic training to failure, high reps, low rest. But if you try to apply this type of training to an exercise that you can only do 4 reps, for example, it is simply not going to work. This doesn't mean that you can become stronger while reaching failure. It simply means that reaching failure is fatiguing, and such fatigue has effects on your training. It affects your recovery between sets and the days after the workout itself. And it is way more detrimental if your capacity to do reps and sets is extremely low and you need a lot of time of recovery between sets, which is the case in calisthenic exercises where the transition is very rough. Case in point, going from a pike push-up to a handstand push-up. Instead of doing 4 sets to failure, you could simply see this training like it is, a strength type of training. Instead of doing 4 sets to failure, you can reduce the reps to something you would be more comfortable with, like 2 reps for example. And instead of doing a 4 set standard, you can double it to 8. This will give you 8 sets of 2 reps, which will give you a total of 16 reps. which is a good amount of volume for an exercise that is highly difficult. Not reaching failure will allow you in this case to do more sets while being more comfortable. Not only that, but you will be able to train more days because you are not exhausting your muscles each time you're going to failure. You won't see this in weightlifting because you could simply keep doing a 5x5, choose a challenging weight but not that heavy, and slowly progressively overload with small increments while reaching failure. If you are ever in that specific phase where you are in a rough transition from an exercise to another, such as in the case of the pike push-up to the handstand push-up, where your capacity to do reps and sets is really low, try decreasing the reps, increasing the sets, and not reaching failure. You will benefit from not having to rest as much between sets, or having to rest more between training sessions while doing more reps as a total, which will benefit adaptation and relative strength. However, I currently don't train like that. I am now capable, if my joints are healthy, to do 8 to 12 reps of handstand push-ups on the floor, no problem. To failure, standard 4 sets, giving a total of around 40 reps per workout of handstand push-ups. My capacity to do reps and sets is higher, so training like that is no longer necessary, as I have already adapted to the exercise and the load itself. So this kind of advice is highly specific.